got a brand new fuel pump in this bad boy. It's the one that Danny installed, AEM 340. This car had been running E85 for a number of years on the stock pump. You can get away with it for a little bit, sometimes maybe only for a few months, sometimes for a few years. This one got away with it, but once we got it on the dyno, we saw that the AFRs were leaning out. So you can see the blue AFR curve. It starts to run out of fuel, especially at the very top. You can see how it just starts to go up and it leans out. So we knew that having a lot of experience with these things, we were having fuel pressure drop. Pump just wasn't keeping up. Hadn't seen its time on 85. Tune was already pretty dialed in, and you can see in red how the AFR just holds nice and flat now. It's not leaning out, right where we need it to be. So job well done by Danny. This thing can go have some fun again. All right, we have this 2006 350Z with the Vortex supercharger all wrapped up. Got the injectors in, fuel pump, did some tuning, got the AFR right where it needs to be at the very tippy top. Got to make a little bit more power with it as well. Nothing crazy. It is down a little bit on power. I mean, the baseline showed that as well. Even with the 2.87 pulley that this thing has, notice that it's not making the boost that it should. So I've noticed that with a few of these kits that have come out of Vortex the last year or so, 6 months, probably a year. We did one with an SI and noticed the same thing. So in any case, it's doing a lot better. It's not going to lean itself out at the top. It's making a little bit more power. So I'm happy. And we'll see if maybe we can get to the bottom of why it's not making a little bit more boost and power, to see if there's something going on with the blower, intercooler. But all in all, successful. And we'll see what... Good morning, guys. On this beautiful blue GTR, we're getting ready to install the Visconti fuel pump harness. The reason we're doing this is to provide the fuel pumps with better power. This is going to be getting the Visconti fuel pump basket assembly. So it's going to have 2 Walbro fuel pumps in it. Those Walbros drop a lot of amperage. So this kit is going to provide the power that it needs to get everything out of it and also not to melt the wiring harness. So JD's in the middle of installing that right now. We'll go and we'll talk about the fuel pump assembly in a little bit. So stay tuned for that. So this is part of the whole harness and everything that we're doing. Really, really nice kit that John puts together for these GTRs. Hey guys, today we're gonna be installing the Visconti Stage 2 fuel pump assembly in that blue R35 GTR that we're also doing the Visconti wiring harness in. So really badass billet aluminum canister on the top. And you are gonna keep the bottom assembly of the factory assembly to contain all the fuel. So really cool setup. This allows you to run the Walbro pump staggered. If you try to run these Walbros in the factory assembly, the canister bulges out and it doesn't fit very well. And you have space, a gap between the bottom assembly canister and the top portion. So fuel can kind of get out, slosh out. The kit comes with a 6 micron fuel filter, which is cleanable and replaceable. It's made, of course, for E85. The factory assemblies just have a paper filter, not ideal for alcohol use. So this is way better. It's got some really cool swivel fittings here for the siphon hoses, factory connectors on the inside. So it's just simple plug and play. And it comes with brand new SOX pre-filters for the pumps. The fitting that you're gonna use for the outlet of the fuel pump to the top hat. So the top hat you're gonna retain. It's basically this whole top assembly that you're gonna replace. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started installing that. A relatively easy install on this. The hardest part again is getting this bad boy in through the tank, but with a little bit of care, you can get it in there without damaging anything. Okay, we're gonna start by disassembling the factory assembly. This assembly already has upgraded drop-in pumps, so it's been apart before. These can be a little tricky. We'll just work our way around this bad boy. All right, so we've got it separated. You can see which one the primary pump is, or has been. Basically this one, see how dirty it is. You can see all that nasty gunk in there that gets inside. So we'll go ahead and we'll clean this off. We don't need to reuse these SOX, thankfully. We're gonna be using the ones provided with the kit. So we'll go ahead and disconnect our harness, take our fuel pump ground out and save all this stuff. And then we're gonna separate one of the hoses that comes off this assembly so we can put a new hose in there. So we've gone ahead, you always got to make sure you get the fuel temp sensor out, and there's these little clips on the inside that hold some of the wiring in place. So we're going to just gently get those removed and out of the way, and we'll disconnect the power and ground connectors off the pumps. All right, now we're going to go ahead and cut the hose that comes off the assembly itself and use the razor blade. All right, we'll go ahead and remove the fuel pump ground. This one can be a bit of a fighter. It's like anything working on cars. Always something doesn't want to give up easily. This is what we're going to be saving. This we're not going to reuse. We'll get this cleaned up. What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to install the new fuel pump outlet fitting. It's going to go on the inlet side of the top hat, okay? So there's O-rings in here. There is 2 of them. You just want to make sure that they are seated in there well, nice and flat. And then we're gonna use some of our assembly lube, put it on the barb as well. And then you have the locking collar. That's a 2-piece setup. So you have the little groove at the bottom that this is gonna lock into place. So we've got this groove that is gonna lock in. It's a little collar piece. It's gonna slide in there, just like that. And you don't have to go too crazy. You will apply a little bit of pressure, get our collar in its place, get our other half. So besides cleaning this out, what we've done too is we've pumped all the fuel out of the tank and we've wiped the tank clean on the inside as well. because all that little debris that you saw inside of here, you get a little bit of those floaties that are still inside the tank. So we've gone ahead and we've cleaned it by hand and wiped it by hand as well. So try to keep it as clean as we can. All right, we can go ahead and put our fuel pump assembly in with the canister. So you are gonna have a slight little bulge just because the bell bottoms on those Walbros, but nothing like using the complete stock assembly. So that's good to go. We're gonna go ahead and get our fuel pump ground in place. So on the center of the Visconti assembly, you have the provision for it to go right in. We'll lock it in place with the provided little Allen bolt. We'll get our fuel temp sensor back in its position. Our fuel pressure relief little siphon connection, snap into place, and then we can connect our power to each pump, and then we'll cleanly tuck the wiring up so when we run it inside the assembly, we don't damage the wiring. It's very critical. This is where it can get a little tricky. So there you have it. This thing's ready to just drop in. We'll zip tie some of this wiring up out of place, keep it low profile, and we'll be good to go. Hang on one sec, I think. All right, there you have it. We've zip tied our power wires for everything. So that way, try to keep it from getting snagged on the inside of the tank. Keep it from also getting near where the float is. So we're gonna go ahead and drop this bad boy in. All right, I've taken the time to lube up the fittings a little bit using the assembly lube, just so that the O-rings don't snag inside the lines. This is the super important part. When you're putting all this in, you're not gonna put any lines, none of them. You're gonna put this all in and you're gonna basically go by feel when you attach this stuff. So once you've got it all slid in the track on inside of the tank, you can go ahead and attach your siphon hoses and finally our outlet hose coming out of the fuel filter, okay?